character who's good.
Who is filled with hope. He saves people because it's the right thing to do. We could use a little bit more of that.
That's the thing, isn't it? That symbol, that feeling, the soaring flights, the impossible strength, the quiet kindness. It's more than just a character. It's an idea. Who is Superman? Seriously, has any question in modern pop culture ever been so simple at the surface, yet so explosive underneath? He's the first, the blueprint, the guy in the blue suits with the red cape who stands for truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. I mean, at this point, we all know the story. The last son of a dying planet, raised in the heartland of America, a god who chooses to be man. But in our world right now, that simple question is in the epicenter of a cultural earthquake. The announcement of James Gunn's new Superman film, which is coming out in a month at this point, has unleashed a tidal wave of excitement for a bright, hopeful take on the character. At the same time though, it has also reignited a fierce, almost religious loyalty for Zack Snyder's darker, deconstructionist vision. The online discourse is a battlefield. One side champions the classic kind-hearted Boy Scout. The other defends the complex, burdened god, struggling to find his place in a cynical world. It almost feels like we're being asked to choose a side, to declare which one is the real Superman. But what if that's the wrong question? What if the debate isn't about which version is right, but about what Superman represents at its core? So, I'm going to take it upon myself to go deep into this. We're going to step back from the flame wars to explore the soul of the character, from his radical beginnings to his cinematic legacy, and we're going to find the truth that binds every single version of him together.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's Superman. Yes, it's Superman.
To really get Superman, you have to go back to the beginning. Not just the flying and the cape, but the context. It's 1938, the Great Depression still has its claws in the nation, and the world is holding its breath, watching the rise of fascism in Europe. And in Cleveland, two young men, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, the son of Jewish immigrants, create a hero. Well, this isn't just a piece of trivia, I promise. It's the very DNA of the character. They channeled their own heritage and anxieties into the ultimate immigrant story. A baby whose Kryptonian name, Kal-El, has roots that echo ancient Hebrew, often interpreted as the voice of God, is sent away in a small vessel from a doomed home. His parents' last act is one of profound hope, praying that he survives and finds a better life in a new land. It's a story of hope, born from tragedy, a theme that will become his defining trait. This first Superman, forget the polished godlike figure for a moment. He was a force of nature, a champion for the oppressed. He wasn't just stopping meteors, he was a social crusader. In his first appearance, he famously stops an execution by grabbing the governor, shakes the truth out of a lobbyist, and takes on a wife beater. He was the raw power of the powerless given form. His secret identity, the mild-mannered Clark Kent, wasn't just a disguise. It was a powerful commentary on a simulation, on hiding one's true self, powerful just to fit in. He was, from his very inception, a character of immense depth and social relevance. Now, like any enduring myth, Superman has had to change with the times. He isn't a static character, but a living idea, constantly interpreted. The post-war optimism of the 50s and the 60s, the silver age of comics, gave us the quintessential big blue Boy Scout. He became a paternal, almost infallible figure. This is where you get the more out of the stories, flying through time, having a super dog named Crypto, battling mischievous imps from the fifth dimension. It was wildly creative and fun, but it also cemented the image of a perfect, untouchable hero who always knew what the right thing to do was. And it was this version that first leapt off the page and onto the screens. George Reeves in The Adventures of Superman became the face of the hero for the first television generation.
Save your time and ammunition, Benson.
He was stern, fatherly, no nonsense. He was the ultimate symbol of the 50s, authority and stability, a comforting presence in black and white. Then came the Bronze Age in the 70s and the 80s with it, a need for more relevance. The story got a bit more grounded. And then a man came along who would define the character for an entire generation. Christopher motherfucking Reeve. Seriously guys, let's take a moment. I mean, for so many people, he was and is Superman. Reeve didn't just wear the suit, he embodied the soul of the character. He made you believe that a man could fly, not just because of the special effects, but because of the unwavering sincerity in his eyes. His Clark Kent was a masterclass in physical comedy and vulnerability, making his transformation into the confident, kind Superman all the more powerful. He perfectly captured the character's duality, the idea that the most powerful man in the world was, at his heart, just a good person trying to help. The comics, in turn, continued to evolve. The 90s gave us a more humanized hero in the Triangle era, culminating in the earth-shattering death of Superman. This wasn't just a gimmick, it was a story that showed the world how much it would miss him if he were gone. And in recent years, with series like Superman Rebirth, we explored him as a husband, a father, teaching his son, John, the same lessons on compassion and responsibility that he learned in Smallville. And you can't talk about the comics without mentioning the masterpieces like All-Star Superman. It presents a dying Superman performing incredible labors, feats not just of strength but of pure empathy, from creating a universe in a bottle to gently taking a young girl off a ledge simply by telling her, "You're much stronger than you think you are." That right there, that's the core.
2001, and we premiered a month after 9/11. And all of the press before the show was all about how can you take Superman out of the suit.
But as the 21st century dawned, the question became, how do you make Superman relevant now? The answer came from an unexpected place, a show that was famously about no tights, no flights. Smallville was a phenomenon. For 10 years and over 200 episodes, we watched Tom Welling as a young Clark Kent navigate high school, friendship, and the slow, often painful discovery of his powers and destiny. It stripped away the icon to focus on the man, or rather the boy, before he became the symbol. It was a superhero story disguised as a teen drama, and it worked brilliantly. It showed us that his most important power wasn't flight or heat vision, but the empathy and the moral compass instilled in him by the Kents. Smallville proved that the journey was just as important as the destination, and it created a beloved version of the character for a whole new generation. Then, in 2006, we got a direct cinematic love letter to the past with Superman Returned. Brandon Singer's film, starring Brandon Ruth, was a spiritual sequel to the Reeve movies. Ruth's performance was a quiet, melancholic echo of Reeve's, portraying a Superman returning to a world that had learned to live without him. The film is visually stunning and has moments of heroism, like the iconic plane rescue. But its deep reverence for the past was also its biggest hurdle in some ways. For audiences in a world that had moved on, this deeply nostalgic, almost somber take felt out of step, leaving the character's cinematic future in limbo once again. Now, that brings us to the modern era and the heat of the current debates. Zack Snyder's vision was ambitious, no one can deny that. He sought to deconstruct the myth and ground it in our anxious, cynical world. His films ask a powerful and frankly terrifying question. What if he were real, here, right now? The result was a Superman forged in pain, an outsider isolated by his power, struggling to find his place in a world that feared him. There are moments of undeniable beauty, the raw, overwhelming emotion of his first flight, quiet gravitas of Clark choosing his destiny. But in its relentless pursuit of realism, its interpretation pushed the character to its absolute limits, and for so many, past the breaking point. The focus on city-leveling destruction, the perpetuality of the brooding persona, and the infamous decision to have Superman kill his enemy. These moments created a version that felt like antithesis to the character's core. It presented a Superman who had to be convinced to be a hero, whose hope was a destination reached only through immense suffering, rather than the very engine that drives him. It was a fascinating what if, a compelling Elseworld story on the big screen. But you could argue that it strayed the furthest from the foundational inherent optimism that defines the character. Now the pendulum swings back with James Gunn's Superman. And make no mistake, this isn't just a course correction. It's a confident, deliberate reaffirmation of the character's primary colors, both literally and thematically. We know it's not another origin story. It drops us into a world where Superman is already established, a beacon in a world that already has heroes. Gunn himself has said that the film is about Superman representing kindness in a world that thinks of kindness as old-fashioned. Think about that for a second. He frames kindness not as a passive trait, but as an active, defiant choice, a superpower. This suggests a hero who is not burdened by his power, but empowered by his humanity. A Superman who finds strength not just in his fists, but in the values instilled in him by the Kents. The return of the classic suit with the trunks, the focus on his career at the Daily Planet, the inclusion of a wider, more fantastic hero universe, it all points to the celebration of the mythology, not a deconstruction of it. It's a vision that embraces the Boy Scouts, not as a pejorative, but as a badge of honor. It's about a Superman who is a symbol of hope because he himself is hopeful. And here's something to chew on. What do you think this shift says about when we, as an audience, are looking for in heroes today? Are we tired of the grit, or is there room for both? Let me know what you think in the comments. So, where does that leave us? A social crusader, a TV dad, a perfect hero, a kid from Kansas, a lonely god, a brooding warrior, a hopeful friend. Who is he? Well, the answer is yes. The true magic of Superman, the reason he has endured for nearly a century, lies in the tension between all these ideas. He is Kal-El, the alien, and he is Clark Kent, the man from Kansas. He is a being of unimaginable power, and he is a gentle soul raised by two good people to be decent. His greatest weakness was never a glowing green rock. That's just a plot device. His greatest vulnerability is his humanity. It is his profound love for a world that isn't his by birth, but by choice. I mean, he has the power to be a king, a tyrant, a god, but he chooses to be a friend. He chooses to help. The single unifying thread that runs through every great Superman story from the 1938 to today is this. He is not perfect, but he inspires us to be. His true power isn't that he can move mountains, but that he can move our hearts. He reminds us of our own potential for goodness. He falls, he makes mistakes, he doubts himself, but he always gets back up and tries to do the right thing. That is the constant. That is the core. He is a reflection of the times that we live in and a reflection of the best parts of ourselves. He is the idea that no matter how dark the world gets, one good person can be a light. He's the quiet belief that there is a hero inside all of us. He's not just a character, he's an ideal that tells us that kindness is not a weakness, that hope is the most powerful force in the universe, and that choosing to do good simply because it's the right thing to do is the best superpower of all. Maybe the best version of Superman isn't in a movie or a comic book. Maybe it's the one that lives in our actions every day. It's the choice to be there for someone, to stand up for what's right, to offer a hand when it's needed the most. That's his real legacy. That's who Superman really is.